Hello everybody, my name is Luke Moore and this is Hot Mode, and today on Hot Mode we are doing a little TBT to the 2004 Met Gala, and we're going to be reviewing some of the looks. Now listen, for those of you who don't know about the 2004 Met Gala until now, you're lucky. It's not super great. But what I will say is that in celebration of the upcoming 2024 Met Gala, I thought, listen, let's look at a past one, and the 2004 one was one I had not covered, so I thought we should get into that. Now the theme for the 2004 Met Gala was Dangerous Liaisons, which some of you might know Dangerous Liaisons because it's a 1988 film and it stars Glenn Close and a really baby young Uma Thurman, Michelle Pfeiffer. You know, there's a lot of goodness going on, and it's set in the 18th century in the French court and is full of dangerous meetups that are very sexual in nature. Now, Dangerous Liaisons is based on The Liaison Dangereuse by Pierre Chaudelot de Leclos. Essentially, he wrote the book in the late 1700s, maybe it was really early 1800s, about the French court and the fact that everybody was getting it on. What also happened was the Met Gala in 2004 sort of themed itself based on that. I actually bought the exhibit's catalog, and what it shows us is a lot of 18th century French court dress. The robe à la française, the robe à la anglaise, the robe à la polonaise, those really big, beautiful, fully skirted out styles, and also the habit à la française, which was the men's sort of dress, which had that sort of jacket that flew away and was full of gorgeous embroideries. And what it is portraiture, but also it showcases to us what rooms look like within different salons, both in the Met and also what those rooms would have looked like at French court, and what took place in those rooms while people were dressed in these crazy big costumes. That's kind of the theme of what we're going for, 18th century French court dress, and people did not deliver. So with that, let's get into this roast. So we're going to start with Amber Valetta. Now listen, as we can see, Amber Valetta, model, muse, showed up and she sort of is giving a little bit Marie Antoinette moments. I mean, the hair is very much so coiffed and coiffured and all that sort of jazz. The dress, I would say, maybe not as Marie Antoinette. The gold bodice sort of does flow into a big, long, wide sort of skirt. We can look at it and say maybe a robe à polonaise is somewhat of the inspiration there. If you look, there's kind of a difference between the robe à la anglaise, the robe à la polonaise, and the robe à la française. This feels very robe à la polonaise to me. But I do appreciate that she was going for it. It's also really interesting because if you watch the Life and Looks video that Amber Valetta did for Vogue, she does talk about how prior to the 2004 Met Gala, she was called into the Vogue offices and Anna Wintour was like, listen, we want you to be Marie Antoinette. And she was like, okay. And so she did it. Amber is also saying that there were some people that sometimes dressed on theme for the Met Gala, but it wasn't really the status quo at all to dress on theme. And so much so that she was saying that there were a bunch of fashion people that were attending the Met Gala that year that were like, oh, you're really going for it. And she's like, yeah, I did. And essentially, she says that she was one of the early starters of the trend of this sort of method dressing when it comes to the Met Gala and really trying to be on theme. So I respect that. I love it for that reason. That skirt where it looks like the motif is a bunch of soda bottles on a shelf of some sort. I don't really understand the reference there, but I'm interested in it. And it does say Galliano on it. Seems like there's a Coca-Cola bottle, a Sprite bottle, a Fanta bottle, some sort of pinkety drinkety there as well. Who knows? Now, underneath that printed draped style, there is a blue and red sort of silk that flows down. I don't love the dress, to be completely honest. I appreciate Amber really doing it, though. Besides that, I actually kind of hate it, to be fair. I think there's a lot going on. It's kind of ugly. I mean, like, a lot of ugly, and so yeah. Listen, throughout this video, I'm going to put in some fashion people, and like Andre Leon Talley always went for it. He's wearing one of his big, beautiful capes. I also love the fact that this coat that he is wearing over top, it's sort of like a cape, coat, jacket. It is made in beautiful silk. It's this really interesting sort of beige color, which I assume is probably a reference to the habit à la française, but it's not really cut in that way, and there isn't really embroidery and embellishment on it. I do like the frilled little cuffs. I think those are cute in white. I think they do add to the way that menswear of the period did have little sort of frills that would shoot out of these jackets. And then he's just wearing a navy blue suit underneath, so he's trying to like be on theme, but also wear something that's somewhat appropriate to a gala. R.I.P. to a legend. I miss him. He's an icon. I'm so sad because, like, always serving. Never not serving. All right, so next up we have Anna Wintour. Listen, one thing Anna does really, really well, usually, is throw the Met Gala. You know, what she doesn't always do super well is turn out a look for the Met Gala. Here we can see that Anna's wearing what is not arguably a very ugly outfit, and I initially thought it was Chanel, because normally Anna nowadays wears Chanel. It's the go-to sort of brand. But I think years ago she actually didn't only wear Chanel. She would sort of cycle through brands. Now this look is actually not Chanel. It's Dior by John Galliano. But the thing is, Anna fumbled the bag. She put on that jacket, which on the runway, because it's from the spring 2004 Haute Couture collection, actually looked kind of good styled a certain way. In this context, it's a fully embellished jacket that at the hip sort of flows down into big sort of swaggy curtains and then becomes embellished. There's a big sort of sailor collar, and then underneath is a yellowish or yellow-greenish sort of slip dress. But the thing is, on the runway, it was actually paired with a big mermaid skirt, so that flared jacket did sort of jump out a lot more. It created a little bit more hip-age. And my big question is, why, if Anna Wintour knew that the whole concept was dangerous liaisons, would she wear something that would make this jacket not only look ugly, but like poorly styled, you know what I mean? Because obviously this jacket had a context, and she's taken it out of the context, and so it's pretty awful looking. Now, it wasn't too awful in a certain context, but now it's just ugly, but ugly. I just don't really understand the whole idea. I do know that this particular John Galliano collection, which is that sort of Egyptian collection, was based on the Dior Fall 1954 Haute Couture collection, which is called the H line, and was really about sort of the hip area and flattening the bust. Again, I feel like for a whole collection about the hip and pannier being a thing, one would maybe possibly sort of expand through artificial or prosthesis or whatever, something to make their hip look bigger for, I don't know, a whole Met Gala themed around, you guessed it, people expanding their hips, making them big with panniers. I just don't know why Anna, like, semi wanted to follow the theme and then was like, no, actually, I'm gonna half try, because it makes it look ugly. It's an ugly look. It's bad. I do know that if you go through, like, worst Met Gala look compilation of all time, Anna sits very much so in almost all of them in this specific outfit, so the girls hate it. Next up we have Anne Heche. I unfortunately don't really know much about Anne, who she's wearing, why she's wearing it. The latter is the more important of the two questions. I also will say that I couldn't find a lot of people's outfits or like who designed them, so I do apologize. But she's wearing this smocked crop top and skirt set. The smocking is the technique that runs around horizontally, both the skirt and the top, and it's how you get that sort of crunchy, scrunchy, ruching sort of style. It's frilled at the top and the bottom and the top again. And then it has these sort of silk bands that like strangely wrap themselves around it, and then the skirt has like a sheer gathered panel, and it's just a whole lot of look. And again, I normally don't talk about hair, makeup, anything like that. It's not my specialty. Rat's nest, we get it. I don't think the hair helps. I feel like the hair is really going for it in a manner I don't really understand, but it's a whole lot of look already. So to then try to do like a hair moment on top that looks like that, I don't think it works well. So thank you, Anne. I want to say mean things, and I probably should. Anne Heche, more like Anne Wretch, because that shit is atrocious. I have to get back to my old self. Next up we have Ashanti. Now she showed up, don't know who she's wearing, but it's this halter dress, has a little keyhole cutout. It's a sort of gold silk style. It does fit her really, really well. I do like it in that regard. The seam right down the center, I never love. It's like the cooter seam to me. I understand why it's necessary. It's a necessary evil, some will say, but I still hate it. Then there is this flowing little skirt and a little bit of train. Listen, it looks nice on her. Like, we cannot deny that. For the period of 2004 where things were tough, famine of beauty, as Andre Leon Talley would say, this is really not that bad. Is it on theme whatsoever? No. But again, I think Amber Valetta does a good job of explaining to us that the theme wasn't really a thing that people cared too much for, so we're gonna let it pass. Next up we have Carolina Herrera wearing none other than Carolina Herrera. Listen, if you have a designer name and you are the designer of that name, it doesn't hurt to wear your own stuff. What I will say is I love this fully striped floor length gown that also fits in with Carolina Herrera's signature, which is a full ball gown skirt paired with a button down shirt and popped collar. She looks very chic, she looks very regal, and yet she's still incredibly on theme. So if we look at this image of actually a robe a la anglaise, we can see that there is fully striped robe a la anglaises and robe a la francaises, and the stripe styles of these sort of pastel colors and white or creams became very much so in vogue. It started around the 1760s, and a lot of the time they were paired with different floral motifs, but by the time the 1780s came around, stripes were just it. They were it. They were giving, they were serving, they were living, they were laughing, they were loving. And I feel like Carolina Herrera understands not only her brand in this moment, but also the fact that, like, you can reference different motifs and different styles and still keep your own brand ethos. I just think it's really cool to see. Like, I think she looks stunning. I think she looks gorgeous. I think she looks very natural in her own element, and yet at the same time, one of the only people that we will see here that is very much so on theme. Imagine being that chic. Couldn't be me. I actually wore these stripes in honor of Carolina Herrera doing that, because I was like, damn, queen. Next up we have Carolyn Murphy. Now she is wearing Gucci, I assume, just because we have a side hip cutout, a deep plunge. Tom Ford, very much so, I think was coming out of Gucci around 2004. Maybe it was a little earlier than that, but like, by the time they would have done this, I think he was still just barely there. Listen, it's a nice dress. It looks really pretty. I don't really love the little gold tiger thing that's sitting in the center, although that gives us a lot of context for tigers that would follow in the Alessandra Michele years. But it's nice, I have to say. That one element I don't love. But again, we can say 2004, different time, different aura. But considering that is also the time period, I think it fits her beautifully. I think that it falls nicely. Like, it all works. And also, I think white silk like that is very tough to pull off, where it doesn't look crinkled and wrinkled and gross and disgusting. So I'm happy to see it. Next up, we have Charlize Theron, and she is wearing Dior. Now, this is a custom gown, I'm pretty positive, because Charlize probably was the brand ambassador for Dior. She still is brand ambassador for Dior. J'adore Charlize. She's doing whatever she can. She is living her best life, and she shows up. She doesn't care. I have to say I respect her. But this is a black taffeta gown, pretty standard, crunchy, a little scrunchy. There's a big sort of fur stole wrapped around one side of her body. The hair is somewhat semi-Marie Antoinette inspired, I would say, the sort of waves and all that jazz. And then there's a little off the shoulder sort of frill. Not much to write home about. But to be completely honest, I think at this point, like, Charlize Theron already was like, no, I do whatever I want, and you all deal with it. And that's that. And again, considering that there isn't too heavily of a, you have to dress to the theme, this seems somewhat appropriate for the theme, or at least compared to most other people at this event. Pretty attending the theme, respectable, so I'll take it. Next up we have Cheryl Crow. I don't know who she's wearing. I don't want to know who she's wearing, because that would be not great for that person. She's wearing this silk draped dress. There's like a side ruffle seam allowance situation going on. There are like turquoise pieces of rock sort of creating a one shoulder slings. It's horrific. This is atrocious. This is disgusting. The only good thing is the slit, because that means I don't have to necessarily look at the dress. I'm looking at a leg, and I'll take that any day. It's gross. I don't get it. Listen, again, early 2000s, different time, but still. This one seems particularly rude and offensive for the time period. I just don't really understand the turquoise neck thing. It's and also, again, the seam allowance on the side there. Like, why would you do, like, why does it puff up? Like, I don't know, it's gross. Next up we have Diane Kruger, and I believe that she's wearing Balenciaga, and I believe that because she is standing holding hands with Nicolas Ghesqueire, the designer, who at the time would have been at Balenciaga. I actually quite like the dress. I think that this gold is really beautiful. I think the silk radiates so well, and the way that it reflects the light is also kind of miraculous. The fit on it also is, to be completely honest, phenomenal. It's gorgeous. The draping of the bodice is really sweet. The way that it hugs the hips is lovely. The way that from the top of the thigh it sort of falls. Great, wonderful, gorgeous, easy peasy. Does it seem like it's necessarily on theme? Here's my thing. I actually have a feeling that what's going on with this sort of chiffon cream shawl and little neck band or neck choker actually might play into the theme a little bit. If we see, Nicolas is also wearing a turtleneck that is underneath his white button-down shirt. But I feel like both Diane and Nicolas are doing a reference to the shirting that would have been underneath the habit à la française. Now, those shirts historically had very high sort of collars, and they would wrap around the neck, and they would sort of help people be a lot more postured and hold your head up high. But it would also come up very much so, and it would leave the waistcoat and the jacket underneath to really be the sort of star, while still sort of adding in a little bit of structure and foundation. And I feel like Nicolas is going for it more. We can actually see that he's wearing some sort of black little silk bandeau or bandana. I feel like it's a reference to the jabot and things like that. And I feel like Diane's version is a little bit more Nicolas Ghesqueire combining, mixing and matching, readapting it all. But listen, the dress in and of itself is lovely. And if the reference is there, I like it even more. Next up, we have Famke Janssen. I don't know who she is, and I apologize to her, but also I apologize. This has to be one of the worst things I've ever seen in my entire life. The issue is it's like a strapless cone, like a navy blue strapless cone. But the issue also is we cut the body through lines at so many different points that it's confusing, scary, and all around concerning. The underneath sort of ribbon cut to sort of possibly reference the Regency era, no, especially with a strapless A-line dress. No. And then this bodice that is matte in navy blue hits around like the lower waist area and then fully turns into a reflective silk that I don't really understand how it's happening. It's scary and hurtful and not nice for her, for me, for everybody involved, for all of you watching. Like, it's just, I don't know why that is a thing that was done. So that line is very harsh where those two fabrics meet. But then also right underneath we have a black line and another one, and then 1, 2, 3 more. And it just doesn't stop. And then the dress cuts off like right below the knee. We can see petticoat and underskirt all exposed. And then she's wearing not a peep toe, but it's like a peep foot shoe. The dogs are out. The dogs are living, laughing, loving. Who let the dogs out? It's happening. It's also a slingback heel, so that's very much so concerning. Overall, this is an atrocity. I'm happy I don't know who made it because I don't want to know because I'm going to hold it against them for the end of time. Next up, we have Gemma Ward, who is wearing, I'm not sure, I felt like it was maybe a Rocha moment. There's just something about the use of black lace overlays to me that feel very Rocha. And like, I want to like the dress. I like the idea of this icy blue that's fully sequined and then the black lace over top, but there's so many issues with it as well. The thing is, I love the idea of the feather bust detail at the neckline. I think that's really interesting, except it looks like a hairy armpit or a hairy boob or both. And the thing is, listen, if you want your boobs, your armpits to be hairy, more power to you. I respect it. I am here for it. But I also don't necessarily know if people want their dresses to be the thing that is an indicator of their body hair or lack thereof. So the thing is, it's like, listen, I respect au naturel, do it to it, defy gender norms, I'm here for it. But I feel like maybe it's a little bit better if you are the person with the body hair, not your dress. And I like the idea, again, of a feather. I think I respect where we're coming from. I don't like where we went because it just is a little strange. And then as we move down the skirt, right where that black lace comes in, there is this horrific band of something that separates the blue sequin with the black lace. And I feel like an overlay of something is supposed to be pretty seamless. Like, you're not really supposed to see what fabric in that crusty, dusty, yellowing, aged material. It's gross. And the thing is, had it not been there, I think it would have been much better. Then we move down and then the hair materializes again, aka the feathers. It's just an awkward moment. Like, there's a lot going on and I think it could have been so much better. It's not great. It's bad. Sorry. Next up we have Hamish Bowles, and Hamish is wearing seems to be some sort of vest that, in my opinion, is referencing part of the wardrobe of the habit à la française. We can see the embroidery and florals, the way that the vest sort of moves down. Would have been probably worn underneath a jacket, but over a shirt, which Hamish is definitely getting into. Seems like he's also wearing a black tuxedo, but over top, as per usual, he is, like Andre Leon Talley, giving the girls what they need. Now, this is, in my opinion, a toile de jouy sort of duster coat of some sort. Maybe it's an overcoat, a smoking coat. And it has a motif of the toile de Jouy, which originally comes from Pakistan. And then I believe in the mid to late 1700s was brought over by like a French-German printer. I don't remember his name, but it was something German-esque. And pretty positive Louis XVI was like, no, you're not allowed to bring those over. I don't like it. You cannot print on cottons. I only want people doing things in silks. It was kind of banned. But then somehow the printer got over it. But then also Madame de Pompadour, who was, I believe, one of the Louis's mistresses. It wasn't Louis XVI. I believe it was Louis XV. She was like, oh, no, don't worry. I got it. And like made a whole house out of toile de Jouy, or at least like in the inside, she interior designed it with toile de Jouy. So like for some reason, toile de Jouy is something that is a part of that French court sort of system and all that. It's just, they didn't really wear dresses necessarily made out of it, or not from what I can find. Hamish Bowles, like Andre Leon Talley, is one of like the historical minds of the world of Vogue, and so whatever he says is appropriate to wear to the Met Gala, I usually very much so I'm like, okay, sure, absolutely, 100%. You more than me definitely know what you're talking about. So in Hamish we trust. Next up we have Hilary Swank. I don't know who she's wearing, but I do like this dress. Again, we're seeing a lot of these sort of fitted, silky styles. It's strapless. What is sort of wrapped around the waist is this like faux cummerbund band that also then in the back sort of turns into a train, or like a little bit of a train. And there is a panel in the front that sort of folds over, so it's almost like the skirt is like a wrap skirt of some sort. Interesting choice, I'm going to be completely honest, because I don't really feel like we see that very often nowadays whatsoever, is this sort of idea of like an extra panel sort of fanning out, but there isn't like a slit that's super visible. I think the color is beautiful. I think it looks really nice on her, again, without sort of getting into the fact that, and again, if it wasn't a requirement to show up at this point serving theme, I'm going to take this and be very content. Next up, we have Isaac Mizrahi. Listen, the suit is like whatever. The suit is fine. I think what we need to talk about is the slides and sandals. We can like show it for a second and then maybe we should blur it. The dogs are, in fact, out. And that's really crazy to me, especially because it's like a full black suit and slides. Like, not an interesting design slide, not a peep toe. No, like pool slides. That's really crazy. Listen, I know maybe like Isaac Mizrahi's semi-banishment from fashion could possibly have been appropriate in this moment, because that's nuts. Like today, if he did that, like it would be headlines for eons to come. So maybe the fashion designers need to start getting back into doing crazy things on the carpets, because like this is wild. Next up we have Ivana Trump, and like I don't normally talk about the Trumps on here, but Ivana, I'm not sure who she's wearing, but I'm pretty positive that she is in fact referencing the robe à l'anglaise. Essentially she's wearing this navy blue sort of silk, it's like a jacket of some sort, and then there is this key lime green pleated skirt underneath that we can see from the waist. It flows out and is very prominent and visible. Why I say that she's referencing it is because the robe à l'anglaise would have a sort of big side skirt, but it would expose a underskirt, sometimes heavily decorated, underneath. And so you would have this sort of two-toned effect compared to the historical sort of française, which would be like full look. There was no different underskirt sort of jumping out and being a centerfold of attention. Ivana's definitely referencing that. Do I like the color combination? No. Is it very Trumpian? Yes. But she's on theme, so. Okay, next up, Ivanka Trump. I don't know who Ivanka's wearing. I tried to look it up, not for too long, but I tried. The reason I really want to talk about this is because it's hideous, and karma is a thing. The cold shoulder swag, the lace butterfly motifs, the godets, the color matching the bad fake tan. I mean, listen, karma is a thing. Sometimes it manifests itself years prior to you doing bad things in the form of really ugly clothing. So next up we have Jamie Lynn DiScala. Out of everybody that I've seen thus far, I will say it feels like we're somewhat attempting to try some period costume reference here. It's definitely not any of the robe a la anythings. Feels much more Victorian, much more sort of Gilded Age in reference. I think the bodice being ruched like that in gold, the skirt full out, and then we can see in the back there is a sort of emphasis and a little bit of a bustling. I'm not going to go as far as to say like, oh, robe polonaise, because I don't see it. It's definitely not as draped as it could be. It, to me, just feels much more referencing of late 19th century dress. But I appreciate that she is a little bit closer to that century than a lot of other people. I don't think it's awful. I think it feels a little bit Disney princess. It's very wrinkle crinkle, but again, the fabric, I can't be super duper mad about it. I don't have to like it, but I can't be mad about it. It feels very Sopranos. Next up we have Jennifer Lopez, and she's wearing Dolce & Gabbana, and this is before the Dolce & Gabbana thing, so like, leave it at the door. She is wearing, originally, a sort of fur stole with little crinkled tails sort of jumping out at the end. She takes it off, and she exposes the fact that she's wearing this sheer fitted bodice, and then right at the hip there comes this big black lace layered ruffled gown skirt. It's a lot. I don't think I love it. I do understand it in the context of Dolce & Gabbana. I do think that it makes sense. I do think it's very on brand. I do like it for the time. I think it's interesting. I do think it's interesting to sort of see this lingerie-inspired style on JLo. I think it fits her. It's also really interesting because this year is a 20th anniversary of her attending. And she was also co-host this year, so I'm intrigued by it. But I really don't hate it at all whatsoever. But am I really like, wow, when I see it? No. Next up is Jimmy Fallon, rough. Again, listen, early 2000s, different time. The attempt to sort of do like chocolate brown in the shirt and the bow tie with black in the suit, respect the attempt. And I think black and brown sometimes can work. Or is that black and navy blue? I think I recently wore brown and black, and I was kind of changing my mind about it just a little bit. But I think also in like silk fabrics, it's a little bit tougher. It feels a little bit 70s to me. Something about the bow tie really does. Also, like from neck up, I'm not a Jimmy Fallon fan. I'm so sorry. I don't get it. And so it's hard for me to try. The pant I like. It's a little sassy, a little 70s. Something about it just looks like a Party City 70s costume to me. The jackets look whatever. Next up we have Julianne Moore. Don't know who she's wearing. I don't think I want to. It's a very royal blue high neckline dress. It sort of cuts away and exposed to the shoulder, a little bit of side pit area, but then there's like this silky band that jumps out of this silky sort of rosette, and then like a flare and flounce, and I don't want to know what's happening with it. I really would rather stay away from it. Seems contagious. Allergies are bad enough right now. I don't want to get any sicker than I have to be. We're going to look at it. We're going to go, the power of Christ compels you. And we're going to move on. Next up we have Karolina Kurkova. I don't know who she's wearing either, but this I love. It's really stunning. It might be Dior. I really don't know. It looks to me like a Dior neckline. I believe it's Dior's like 4th or 5th collection where he did these sort of asymmetrical necklines. I did have to apologize to Maria Grazia Curie at a certain point because I found out that he did that. So like I can't hate her as much as I want to for that one. But this looks really lovely. I think the black is gorgeous. It's tough because like if the canvas is nice looking, it's hard to mess that up. And yet sometimes people do. But in this case, we've enhanced the canvas very much so. I love the skirt. The gathering is gorgeous. The fact that it's fitted around the waist and the hip is really lovely. The neckline is great. She looks happy and gorgeous. Everybody wins here. Very nice. Next up we have Kim Cattrall. This is a roughie and a toughie too. The brown is fine. I think the two-tone brown is a little rough because you go from a draped matte brown to a very velvety brown, not meant to be crushed, but feels a little bit crushed. But I think the real issue here is like the bird feather silhouette outline thing that diagonally moves from like the waist over the pelvis. I don't know what it is about putting feathers over certain parts of the body, but I don't think it's working. I also don't love the hair. Again, I really don't talk about the hair, but like the hair is literally in the dress. Like it is creating its own texture, and I don't like that either because that messes with me and I really can't not look at it, especially when it flows right down the front into this weird bird thing. It's gross. I don't like it. I don't like the dress at all. No. Thank you. Next we have Kristin Davis. Again, like feathers are really in. What I will say about Kristin Davis's look is that to a degree, I don't know how much Dangerous Liaison she's really trying to reference, but the faux ermine sort of shawl part of this little black cocktail dress, I do appreciate, I have to say. I do think that it references very famous imagery of Louis XIV, who wore big old ermine trains. He also loved a red heel, but hey, to each. I think it makes sense to reference an ermine to sort of bring in that idea of nobility, aristocracy, especially when the exhibit is really looking at the people that were living in French royal court. Like, it does make sense. The feathers at the bottom, I'm intrigued by. She's carrying a Louis Vuitton bag, so I'm trying to figure out maybe if she's wearing LV. I'm not really sure, but I like that little bag. Very Marc Jacobs era. The fit of the dress is okay. It's fine. It's fine. And that's also like somewhat on theme, even if she wasn't trying to be. So like, we'll take it. Next up, we have Lauren Santo Domingo, who is also wearing a little ermine stole reference. Again, Louis XIV, French aristocracy, French royalty, liaisons dangereuses. The dress itself, that white dress, little strapless moment, I can't see what bust line looks like. It almost feels a little bit, who were these young people that post the French Revolution, aka where the ermine stoles in France kind of ended, they would dress up in these like crazy little outfits, and designers love to reference them. I also feel like, to a weird degree, we're seeing a little bit of a reference to the Second Empire, where Empress Eugenie, who was the wife of whichever Napoleon, I don't remember, she sort of brought in the Regency neckline and the sort of idea of the underbust being very prominent and very much so in style, and moving away from these sort of big panier, very silky sort of styles, but rather these really clean, easy, columnal lines. And so I wonder if that's kind of what Lauren Santo Domingo is going for. Not only what is happening, but also what was to come. I'm not sure. But I will say, as far as the looks go, I like it. Next up, we have Linda Evangelista. She is wearing Jean Paul Gaultier. It's the spring 2004 Haute Couture collection, and I'm pretty positive it's based on, I don't know exactly which country, but I'm going to assume it's either Japanese, Chinese, or Korean textiles. Again, I apologize, I don't know exactly where Gaultier is pulling inspiration from here, but I also know that each of those countries do really, really beautiful sort of silk. I don't love the dress. I don't. I think it's really tough to be able to do those kinds of styles and pull it off, especially if nobody, being Jean Paul Gaultier or Linda Evangelista, are Asian. It feels not great. The other thing that I'll say is, when we look at it on the runway, it is ruched on the side, so it's almost like vacuum sealed in that appropriation. And then you have these sort of billowing panels that flow out of red chiffon. I prefer it with the arm out. Also with like the bag, there's a lot going on. I don't want to look at it. So thank you, but no thank you. Also, yeah, no. Palette cleanser, Liya Kebede, stunning. Beautiful, gorgeous. I think this is a great example of, you don't have to have anything going on that references the theme whatsoever, and you can still look gorgeous. I think the color is sweet, that powdery blue. I don't know if the actual like fur is sewn onto the end of that sleeve, but if it is, miraculous. If it's not, Liya is even more of a star, because I don't know how she perfectly has it sort of posed on her arm like that. I do like the draping in the top. I think that it's fun. It's like a subtle little cowl. Do I wish maybe there's a little bit more continuity of the draping in the skirt? Sure, but like, I'm not going to let that make me upset, because other than that, I think this is a beautiful look. She looks stunning. She's carrying it ever so easily and simply. It makes me happy. Next up, we have Lucy Liu. Halter necks are in. So it's a embellished and embroidered, multi-ruffle, multi-layer thing. And it's ugly. I'm so sorry. It's really, I don't get it. I don't really understand what this chiffon motif is. Like, maybe it's meant to be flowers, but it looks like something under a microscope. It looks like cells, and I don't really love that. And then the embellishment, the crystals, look like some sort of pathogen that is ready to absolutely destroy this already dying creature. Yeah, it's a little bit thin-skinned for me. Put it out of its misery, Lucy. He was looking like he was ready to go. And by he, I mean that dress, because ugly dresses we're gonna pronoun with he. Moving on, more ugly. Mandy Moore in Pro and Schooler. I'm not calling Mandy Moore ugly. I'm calling the dress ugly. Just want to say. I think that the halter is happening. It's like a sort of eggplant halter style. Then there's like a green quilted band that goes across and like covers certain areas I feel like definitely should not be touched by a green quilted band. And then there's like a high-waisted burgundy skirt. And again, I'll be honest, I don't know how Schooler does it, and by that I mean stay in business for that long. So that's just, I'm being honest. With respect, I'm good. Thank you. Next up, we have Molly Sims. She is wearing a silky little number. Again, the cold shoulder. I like these draped sleeves, or semi-sleeves, 3/4 length sleeves. The plunge is okay. The silk is fine. I don't really know if we needed the crustal. That's what we should call these. I meant to say crystal encrustment, but this is like a crustal. It's a ball of crystals that is ugly and poorly placed on a garment, and it just is crustaling on the dress, and we don't need it. Stop crustaling then. I feel like the crustal is out, but there's always the chance that it comes back, and I don't want that. So no more crustaling, please. Next up, we have Naomi Watts. This is not the dress from 13 Going on 30, but it looks like the dress from 13 Going on 30 to me. It has the colors. It has like that icy blue that goes right into a stripe of burgundy, and there's a purple in there. So I'm totally off, but like, that's what it's triggering. Yeah, I don't really love the straps, don't really love the gathering of the bust line or the fake cummerbund or the rest of the dress in general, so just burn that one. Get rid of it. Next up, we have Natalie Portman. Don't know who she's wearing. Don't think I want to. It's a green high-low. I have not seen a high-low in such a long time. It has to be at least like 3 years of my life. This is interesting. What I will say is the halter style with the keyhole cutout and like the string holding it up and the green high-low and the gold embellishment all throughout. It's just, there's a lot. There's so much happening, and yet it also feels like there's so little happening, so little effort has gone into it, and yet so much has. I want it to stop. I don't know. I don't like it. I'm not into it. Listen, Natalie Portman, always stunning, always gorgeous, yet the dress, not so much. Not the case. Okay, so this is a new segment that I call Random Guess, who I don't know who they are, but I did like or dislike some of their looks, so let's talk about them. This is a quick fire round. So first up, we have this lady. I like her jacket, and I like her skirt, and I like her bodice. The jacket definitely is giving Met Gala method dressing, and I appreciate her, and I like that. The skirt, definitely doing something similar. Next up, we have this lady, high-low, again, happening, I don't know, that smile, seductive. I like it. I also feel like she's wearing like a haute couture style. This scoop neckline with the crystals, I don't know, from afar looks to me like the white ruffles that flow out of robe à la françaises. And I don't know, I just liked her. She was cute. Next up, we have this woman, hey, loathe entirely. That is atrocious. I'm so sorry, but I'm really not, because the skirt, I don't know what happened. It looked like it got ruined. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that's a reference to something. Maybe, I don't know, French Revolution. Half ruffle sash thing, you know, that guy in the back, he completely understands what I'm saying. Gross. Next up, we have her. I hate the skirt. I like the bodice, but I would like the bodice removed from her and put on a mannequin, and then I can look at it and say I like the bodice. But I don't like it in the context of this outfit because I don't really understand what's going on at all, or why she's wearing it. Next up, we have her. I love this. Very robe polonaise. I think she's on theme. I think this is a good example of Amber Valetta saying that people, or some people, would method dress when they went to the Met Gala. It just didn't happen all that often, but like, I think this is a great example of going for it, having the dress made. It looks really lovely. This is how very rich people should spend their money. That's my thoughts. Next up, we have her. I feel like she is most definitely serving to the girls. So I feel like she's referencing the chemise dress that Marie Antoinette famously wore, and also famously was like a big part of why people really didn't like her, and they thought that she was not worthy of being the queen for reasons that they essentially like thought she was a sex worker and like denigrating France as a foreigner. So long story short, this chemise dress is like what would have been, or not exactly like this is more ornate and full, but there would have been a layer worn underneath the robe à l'anglaise, robe à la française, and all those sorts of styles that would essentially be the thing that kind of catched or caught oils and things like that, so you wouldn't get it on really expensive dresses that it would be a little bit tougher to clean properly. So you'd wear that almost as like a protective layer. It was the chemise, and the chemise in French means shirt. And what would happen is like you would wear a chemise and it was kind of like an undergarment. It'd be like wearing your underwear out. So when Marie Antoinette wore the chemise, she kind of had a portrait made of her in a chemise, and everybody was like, we just blurbed that, but you get what I'm going for. This lady's kind of doing it, and I like it. And I think this is very on theme. Next up, we have this moment. Listen, very Victorian to me. Not really very super 18th century, but I like the attempt because this is really ornate. And again, rich people should spend their money in a way that I approve of, and I think we all approve of. I think that's the best thing going forward. Next up, we have these two ladies. They are taking it. They are wearing their robe a la française. They are doing fashion. They are doing style. They are doing period costume. I would like to thank them. And lastly, we have this lady. I really like these ruffles. I like the fact that it's sleeveless. I think this silk is gorgeous. I think the blue is very on trend for the late 18th century. I think that the ruffles definitely add in that, again, robe a la française sort of feeling, detail, texture. She's got it. She's selling me on it. Thank you, madam. See, wasn't that fun? People that actually are doing it properly, we like to see it. And next up we have Renee Zellweger, and she is wearing, I don't know, but it's this strapless gold dress. There is gold sort of leaf looking like panels running down the front of it, or like gold block print. So like you would put gold leaf, I guess, on like a piece of wood or something, or a block, and you'd press that into the dress and then it would stay. I want to say that's not really on trend, but at the same time, I'm wondering if there is like a reference to the love of the French Rococo Baroque obsession with very ornate, very out there and exaggerated things, the love of gold, the hall of mirrors and gold chandeliers and yada, 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 yada. I feel like maybe that's what we're getting at a little bit here with this dress. So like, I'm going to take it. I'm not going to love it, but I'm going to take it. Next up, we have ScarJo, Regency. I think the color is really lovely on her. The way that it falls is really nice. The twist in between the bust area is not great, but I do really think that it is fitted rather well to her. Like that bust area, she fills it out absolutely perfectly. It's really quite lovely. The way that it falls is gorgeous. It's majestic. Not really anything to write home about, but she looks very pretty. Next up, we have Serena. She's wearing this purple silk dress, and the thing is, I like the shoulders, don't like anything else. I think that the bust area, it's a little rough the way that it's draped, and I get why it's meant to be. I really don't like the wraparound silky waistband thing, and then the rest of the skirt's okay, but again, like really not much to write home about whatsoever. And so, no. Next up, we have Sophie Dahl, and she is wearing Zac Posen, and I believe that she is related to like Ronald Dahl, or Roald Dahl of like the books. What I will say is like, I'm a lover of Zac Posen, and I'm a lover of Zac Posen being a student of Charles James, and the way that each of those little lines that is creating that sort of V shape that moves down the dress are like hand done and are very much so Charles James reference. So like, I love it for that. But besides that, I could see why people would be like, blah, who cares? But at the same time, again, that dress I do like. Next up, we have Stella McCartney. Hey, that bodice is awful, gross, disgusting. The color is not good. The gathering is atrocious. No, her face says it all. She knows that it's not good. She knows it's not worth it to be there. And lastly, we have Theodora Richards. The thing that I would like to highlight is the gigantic stain that is sitting right in the pelvic region. What I don't want to highlight or have to talk about is the fringe slit skirt that's going on, but what I will say is the early 2000s socialites needed to be stopped and nobody did it, and that's really sad. But yeah, the stain shockingly is the most interesting thing about this look. So let's talk about best and worst, because that's the end of the video. Thank goodness for all of us. To the random guests I loved, I love you and I appreciate you. As for best, I'm gonna put Carolina Herrera, chic. I'm gonna put Amber Valetta, because she attempted and we appreciate that. I'm gonna put Karolina Kurkova. I'm gonna put Andre Leon Talley, Hamish Bowles. I'm going to put Diane Kruger, I really, really loved. Liya Kebede. Scarlett Johansson, I liked. Hilary Swank, I also liked. As for worst, Mandy Moore, Jimmy Fallon, Isaac Mizrahi, terrible. Oh, Famke Janssen? Don't know, but hate. Oh, Anne Heche, I retch. Oh, Anna. Throwing. She threw. She literally threw. She purposely threw, reported, blocked, canceled, done. Oh, Julianne Moore also did not like that. Oh, and Kim Cattrall. Yeah, there's a lot I didn't like. So, oh, Lucy Liu. Yes, the dress that should have got rid of itself. So that is the end of this video. I hope you all enjoyed. We will see you for the 2024 Met Gala reviews, because we got a bunch coming up. So thank you so much for watching, and TTYL.